Before we started having kids, I wanted 5 children.
I wanted 3, and then I changed it to 4. And
we kind of compromised and said we would do 4. But then we started actually having children, and we thought, holy smokes, this is hard.
Changed it to 0.
No.
I'm a youth pastor. It was my desire since I was 15 years old to work in the ministry, and I love it. I love doing that. I love working with students.
I was working in the professional field before we had children, and we just really felt that I should stay home and be a full-time mom, and just that I'm able to be there whatever they would need me for. That's very important to us.
My mom is really nice. I like to hug her. She sings to me in bed, and my dad helps me with the songs I write.
Family's nice to me, and I really love them, and they love me, and that's all I can say.
You can't do that!
I can't do what?
We had what my grandma calls a rich man's family. We had a girl, a boy, 2 parents.
Things were good. We were comfortable. We were stable. So things were pretty average, pretty normal.
Shortly after Micah was born, I started having strange thoughts, feeling like I was a spectator watching my own life, watching my husband and my kids interact. I really felt like they would be better off if I wasn't around. At that point, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. We went into the doctor's office, and he prescribed some medication and some counseling. Slowly and surely, steadily, things got better. I was able to do a little more. That's when we came to the conclusion that even though we had wanted a bigger family, pregnancy is not a good thing for me. So as opposed to saying no more kids, we just started saying no more pregnancies. We weren't exactly sure where that would lead us.
We just left ourselves open to any possibility that God wanted for us.
Jen is my older sister. Aside from Josh, she is my best friend.
My Aunt Jen, she's very fun.
My Aunt Jen is probably the best aunt ever.
A couple years have passed since Micah was born and I was experiencing all that depression. Jen was just trying to figure out who she should be pouring herself into, how she wanted to live her life. So she decided to go on the World Race.
The World Race is a missions trip, just short of a year, 11 countries, 11 months. I really was hoping that the experiences on the race would lead to me being used by God to do something bigger than myself. In the second month of the World Race, we got to China. The orphanage that we were working in was filled with kids that had all different kinds of disabilities. And I remember this one little boy just happy as can be, and he just came right over and wanted to sit up on my lap, threw his arms up in the air, big smile on his face. And that was Zeke. And it didn't take long, it didn't take much for him to melt my heart. He just reminded me so much of Isabel and Micah.
Jen was in China that month, and I knew she was leaving soon. So I was hoping to talk to her to hear how her month had been and what she had been doing that month. So I opened my computer and I got an instant message from her. We chatted a little bit back and forth. Then she kind of just said, "Hey, I have a question for you." And I said, "Okay, shoot, tell me, let me know." And she just said, "I found your son. This little boy, he's beautiful, he has Down syndrome. Would you adopt him?" And I thought about it for about 2.5 seconds, and then I said, "Yes." And then it dawned on me, hey, I'm married, and I should ask my husband what he thinks before I commit to adopting this child. And he said, "Yeah, I know, I'm chatting with her, and I already told her we would adopt him."
We knew that we wanted to have more kids. So as we were presented with this possibility of adopting, it was like God had just kicked open the door and said, "This is what you're supposed to do."
Jen sent me some pictures And there was one picture where she was holding him. And at that point, I thought, that is not fair that she gets to meet my son first. So honestly, as soon as I knew about him, he was my son. It wasn't really a question.
And when I saw that picture, I remember saying to Katie that I'm in love with a child that I don't even know yet, but I knew he was mine. I knew he was my son, there was no doubt. I didn't doubt that we were supposed to adopt Z, but I doubted how it was going to happen.
There were times when I was getting extremely frustrated because it seemed like the things that were taking too long were things that were totally out of our control.
The financial side of it was something that was insurmountable to me. We knew from the beginning that it was going to be a little over $30,000. We were still in the mire of paperwork, and then we were contacted by this organization through Jen to do a fundraiser in Z's name. We could pick any one day, and any money that came in on that day, this group would match dollar for dollar. Sky's the limit. That was Z Day.
We didn't really have any idea how much that would be, but at the same time, it was very exciting to know that there was, an organization out there that cared as much about adoption as we cared for Z.
I had written blogs. There were 40-some people on our squad. They had written blogs spreading the word about this one day.
And our blog went global. We had donations coming in from Korea, England, Australia, New Zealand, all over the world in support of Z-Day.
Just exciting. I don't even know words to describe it.
I didn't do any work that day. I just sat there watching the PayPal thermometer rise. And it just seemed to grow at an exponential pace.
It reached 5,000 by lunch, I think.
Yeah, it was so, in realizing we still had hours left in the day, just my mind of how big God is just began to blow. By the end of the night, we received just over $16,000. That still was to be matched. So in one day, we received over $32,000 towards Z's adoption. So in one day, God funded Z's entire adoption. They issued us a letter of acceptance from China, and at that moment, no one else could adopt him. He was ours. We just had to get there. We've never been to China, and here we are headed to China to bring this little Chinese boy home with us.
So we land in Beijing. It was January, so it was just like it was here in Pennsylvania, cold and snowy, and we walk into this building. We're excited, we're nervous. There were maybe 30 other couples in there waiting to get their kids as well. It was loud, it was crazy, there was crying, there was laughing. And in the midst of all that, the door opens and in runs Z. I just stood there and looked at him and cried.
He's right here. He's real. I mean, it was a realization of this 14-month dream, and it was just so fantastic to follow this little ball of energy all around the room, and just begin to live life with him. So we flew into Newark Airport, touched down. I texted Jen and said, "Hey, we've landed. We've got to go through customs, and then we'll be out." And Katie was holding Z, and I was pushing the mountain of luggage that we had. And we came out. We saw faces that we knew.
That's my dad!
first hugged him, that's when he entered our family. Once someone else enters your family, someone else enters your heart.
It may take a while, but in the end, everything will end up good.
I remember sitting in the orphanage thinking how much this precious little boy reminded me of my niece and my nephew, and how much I loved being their aunt. And now I get to be his aunt too. Is exactly what I thought it would be. He fits in perfectly. He fits in with their family.
What's this?
I want people to know that he is my son. He looks different than my other two kids. He behaves differently, but he is my son. Going through the adoption process has helped me understand what it means to be adopted into the family of God. To have a father who loves me unconditionally. Because I have a son who's adopted now, and I know what it means to love him.
Z's full Chinese name is Ziping. We had no idea what it meant. When we got to China, we asked our guide, what does that mean? And he looked at the Chinese characters and he said, this is actually a very beautiful name. His first name, Z, means sun, and his middle name, Ping, means peaceful. So his name is Peaceful Sun. So every time we call his name, every time we say Z, we're literally calling him Sun.